The stars of the Orion spur had burned brightly for eons, their light a testament to the civilizations that rose and fell beneath their watchful gaze. Yet by the time the Zephyrian collective arrived, even the brightest suns seemed dim and, their brilliance swallowed by an encroaching shadow. No one could say for certain when it began. Some scholars trace the first whispers to the icy moons of Gliese 581G, where isolated mining colonies reported vessels of impossible geometry slipping in and out of real space. Others insisted that the first contact occurred in the heart of the Andromeda Corridor, when an entire diplomatic armada vanished without a trace. But all accounts converged on one terrifying fact: the Zephyrians moved like a force of nature, unstoppable and inscrutable. Echoes across the void from the Citadel City on Proxima Centauri b. The Overmind broadcast its dominion in waves of bioluminescent code. The Spira, colossal crystalline lattice, towered above a metropolis laid out in concentric rings. Each ring pulsed in unison, its walls etched with glyphs that glowed when the Overmind spoke. Its language was not comprised of words, but of complex harmonic resonances, each pulse carrying the weight of countless assimilated minds. At the heart of the Citadel, the Council of 10,000 Worlds convened in virtual exile. Holoprojections of diplomats, generals, and scientists flickered in the chamber's obsidian gloom. Their faces showed the strain of despair. Galaxies had fallen one after another. Even the legendary fleet of Red Star, revered for its superluminal dreadnoughts, had been rooted in a single, merciless engagement above Sigma Draconis IV. Without denying the Overmind's strategic brilliance, Admiral Rishin spoke, voice taut with frustration. We must acknowledge that no conventional weapon can pierce their armor. Every missile, torpedo, and laser volley is absorbed or redirected. Our losses are measured in trillions of lives. High Chancellor Lavanna of Trion 9, whose homeworld had been reduced to molten slag, stared at the council table. We've tried diplomacy, subterfuge, mass resignations of military high commands to disrupt their data assimilation. Nothing has delayed their advance more than a heartbeat. The silence that followed was suffocating. They had debated strategies. For weeks, glade warfare, biomechanical countermeasures, even archaic biological viruses, but each proposal unraveled under scrutiny. Against the Zephyrians' hive mind, unity was their greatest weapon. Then, from the periphery of the council, hologrid, a quiet ripple of static appeared. All heads turned as the grainy image of a human starship's bridge materialized. The insignia of Earth's United Stellar Directorate to interlocking rings, encasing a stylized phoenix, glowed with fierce defiance. You have no idea what we're capable of, said a calm but resolute voice. Lieutenant Commander Mara. Zelen leaned forward, her auburn hair swept back in a regulation braid. You focus on firepower we don't possess. We have something far more potent: ingenuity. Birth of the dauntless Earth, the cradle of humanity, had spent centuries rebuilding after the Second Codex War. From the smoldering ruins of continental megacities rose a consortium of nations, dedicated to exploration and defense. The United Stellar Directorate USD invested heavily in cloaking matrices and quantum compression drives, technologies that eluded the rest of the galaxy. They called it Project Aegis, to shield the collective homeworlds from threats both known and unimaginable. In the gilded halls of Luna Base, engineers huddled around a prototype unlike any vessel before. Its hull was forged from layered metamaterials, both ultralight and yet capable of shifting vibrational modes to absorb or redirect incoming fire. Beneath its smooth surface lay the heart of the secret, the subspace stealth quantum SSQ drive, a marvel that bent spacetime around the ship, rendering it invisible to conventional sensors and, if calibrated correctly, even to the Overmind's empathic resonance sweeps. Chief Engineer Jiro Kawashima recalled the moment they first achieved the SSQ's signature quantum slip. It was like stepping through the looking glass. He'd said in an interview later, "One moment we were in normal space, then we just weren't. It's difficult to describe the exhilaration." He paused, eyes distant. "And then we realized, if the Zephyrians can't see us, perhaps they can't stop us." Funding for the vessel, christened the USS Dauntless, was expedited with unprecedented speed. 5 years later, on the eve of its commissioning, A final ceremony took place on board the launch platform above Earth's orbit. Representatives from every USD member planet, as well as envoys from the Council of 10,000 Worlds, watched the holographic countdown. Commander Zelen, Admiral Rishan's voice crackled over the comlink. The galaxy turns its eyes to you. We know the risks, we know the cost, but we believe in you. Mara stood at the viewport, her silhouette etched against the Earth rising in the distance. Beneath her calm exterior, her heart thundered. Her crew were the best of humanities, dreamers and warriors, officers who had lost family to the Zephyrians, scientists who had watched their research consigned to oblivion. They believed, she told herself, not in blind faith, but in human tenacity. Prepare for stealth drive engagement, she replied softly. May our ingenuity light the path. Into the abscess, the Dauntless slipped into the void beyond. Her hull shimmered with quantum distortions. On the bridge, consoles flickered from false positives, echoes created by the SSQ's decoys. Admiral Rishan's words echoed in Mara's mind. Ingenuity. It was the antithesis of the Overmind's unstoppable force, which thrived on assimilation and uniformity. Where they had harmony, humans had innovation. Where they had singular purpose, humans had chaos, and that chaos could be weaponized. For days, the Dauntless traversed silent sectors. Sensor sweeps revealed abandoned outposts, drifting warships, the skeletal remains of spacefaring infrastructure. Each ghostly artifact spoke of civilizations erased in the blink of an eye. Mara cataloged each one, logging coordinates so that, when or if they returned, they could reclaim these worlds. In the mess hall, the crew shared their stories. Lieutenant Ayres, the tactical officer, had grown up on Titan and survived an orbital bombardment that left her arm scarred and her heart steeled. Dr. Salahuddin, the ship's xenobiologist, spoke of his lost research into psionic fauna creatures that had perished when their planet succumbed. Even Petty Officer Reyes, the ship's communications specialist, maintained a scrapbook of alien scripts stolen from archives before they were lost to the collective. We carry more than weapons, Mara reminded them during a late-night briefing. We carry every hope that remains. Their destination lay at the edge of the Zephyrians' known territory, the Orion sector. Once a vibrant cluster of independent systems, now silent. Intelligence suggested the collective maintained a network of scout cruisers there, testing the limits of their reach. If the Dauntless could penetrate their phalanx, even for a moment, they might uncover the Overmind's architecture and with it, a strategy to fracture the hive. As the human warship slipped the final light years, an uneasy calm settled over the bridge. The stars outside glinted with the promise of discovery and danger. Lieutenant Ayres' finger hovered over the comm alert button, ready to broadcast an intrusion, but Mara's hand stayed her. Not yet, Mara said. We observe. We learn. Then, we strike at the heart. And so, beneath the shadow of a silent conquest, humanity's most daring gambit commenced. The Dauntless glided onward, cloaked in temporal shimmer, borne by the singular conviction that even the vastness of extinction could not extinguish the spark of defiance. The Overmind might have absorbed trillions of minds, but it had never faced the fiercest weapon of all, a soul determined to remain free. The Dauntless drifted through shadowed void, its crystalline hull imperceptible against the tapestry of distant suns. For 2 weeks, they had skirted the fringes of known space, gathering data, mapping sensor blind spots, and learning the subtle rhythms of the collective's automated patrols. Every day presented new specters, silent freighters adrift, their crew long since folded into the Overmind. Hollowed stations broadcasting only white noise, and vast mining rigs, their drills still, carving crystalline veins on dead worlds. Yet none of these encounters could compare to what waited in the Orion sector. Lieutenant Ayres stood at her station, fingers dancing over the gravimetric sensors. Her eyes steel gray, sharpened by loss, followed the ghostly outlines that flickered across the holo display. Commander, she said, voice low, we're within visual range. I'm seeing 20 Zephyrian probes arrayed in a sweep formation, sector for B-pattern delta arc. Mara Zelen moved beside her, eyes narrowed. Vector, converging on our estimated position. Ayres replied, they haven't detected us yet, but their formation's tightening. Mara drew in her breath. After all the simulations, the clandestine jumps, this was the moment of truth. The Dauntless was built to slip past even silent champions of dread, but this would be the first time. Earth's finest technology faced the collective mind of the Overmind in live combat. "Helm," Mara called, turning to Ensign Calder just 2 paces away. "Plot a course through the asteroid belt. Keep us 20 kilometers above the ecliptic plane. Stick to the fractured grav lanes. If we can't evade them outright, we'll at least force their formation to fragment." Calder's hands flew over the nav console. "Course plotted. Commander, engaging now, outside." The nebula's dusky tendrils gave way to the fractured rock field of the Helene-run asteroids. Jagged spires of rust-colored metal and ice loomed. Like shattered sentinel, with a low hum, the Dauntless's engines ignited, steering the ship in a graceful arc. Quantum slip drive readouts flickered green as the SSQ field rippled through its coils. Yet within moments, the vessel seemed to float, suspended in a cocoon of folded spacetime. Behind them, the Zephyrian probes glowed into detection range. Bioluminescent, filaments snaked across their hulls, eyes of living data scanning the void. Each cruiser bore the unmistakable geometry of their makers, elongated, sinuous forms with no hard corners, surfaces that rippled like living skin. "Mara," Ayres said, leaning close, "they're adjusting emitters. They'll sense our gravimetric signature any second." Mara's heart thudded. Now, she pressed her palm to the tactical console. With a soft crackle, the Dauntless emitted its echo radar burst, a fractal mesh of frequencies that blossomed outward, like a cosmic spiderweb. In response, each Zephyrian probe stuttered, its neural filaments quivered as if startled by an unseen force. "Jamming pattern Delta 9 engaged," Ayres reported. "We're blind to them for 90 seconds. A tense hush fell over the bridge. Outside the viewports, the asteroid field gleamed with ice crystals and metal slag, every fragment a potential ambush point. But the probes held back, their formation faltering as they recalibrated. "This is our window," Mara whispered. "Activate the graviton decoupler vector 724 on the aft deck." The graviton decoupler's core coils began to spin, low-frequency hums reverberating through the ship. Space itself bent, creating a localized distortion that swallowed the Dauntless whole. One moment they were illuminated by the cold glow of asteroid lens reflections. The next, they were gone. "Slip drive disengaged," Calder reported. "We're stationary." A collective exhale rippled through the crew. For a heartbeat, they floated in perfect silence, no sensor pings, no energy signatures, nothing to betray their presence. Mara allowed herself a small smile. "Good work." Sensor scan for residual filaments. "Let's see what they're looking at." Lieutenant Chen, the ship's advanced sensor specialist, rubbed his temples. "Minimal neural imprint. They're scanning for gravimetric anomalies, but they've lost our trail. We're clear." Moments later, a low ping on the audio channel heralded incoming transmission. The bridge lights dimmed as a translucent cascade of glyphs coalesced. Above the comm console, the Zephyrian crest. "They've hailed us," Ayres said, a hint of awe in her voice. "No vessel has ever met with them alive before." Mara leaned forward, exhaling slowly. "Open a channel audio and visual. Let's see what they want." The glyphs recalibrated into a humanoid visage, intricate lines of bioluminescence forming a mask-like face. Its eyes, sapphire orbs of pure data, studied the camera feed with chilling detachment. Entity designation, Dauntless-class vessel. It intoned in flawless high galactic. Its voice was neither male nor female, but a perfectly balanced chorus of harmonics. "You trespass within the domain of the Zephyrian Collective. State your purpose." Mara steadied herself. "I am Lieutenant Commander Mara Zelen of the USS Dauntless, United Stellar Directorate. My mission is to observe, nothing more. We carry no threat." Yet, a ripple of distortion ran through the alien's features. "Observation constitutes intrusion. Intrusion mandates assimilation or destruction. Choose." The word assimilation hung between them, a centuries-old promise of absolute surrender. Mara's grip tightened on the edge of the console. "Neither," she said. "We choose resistance." For a moment, the holo face shimmered, fracturing into static. Then the probes fell into formation, particle disruptors charging in cobalt. "Arcs, Battle stations. Mara's voice cut through the tense air. Evasive maneuvers Delta. Shields the maximum. Airs, target their lead probe's filament cluster, aim for a single disruption. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. Airs issued orders. Technicians adjusted shield harmonics. And engineers recalibrated the SSQ field to double as an emergency buffer. Outside, the first disruptor beams lanced toward them, denting empty space without effect. But even as the beams passed harmlessly through their cloaked hull, the probes unleashed a volley of graviton charges, miniature singularities designed to tear apart matter at the subatomic level. The Dauntless shuddered as the hull plates flexed under the onslaught. Shields at 60%. Cried the comms officer. Return fire. Mara ordered. Mark the brunt of our jamming frequency. Fire torpedoes on my command. 3, 2, 1. Now, 3 graviton-spliced torpedoes launched. They arched through the rubble-strewn void, their warp cores humming with pulsed energy. One struck the nearest probe, ripping a jagged fracture in its form. Its neural filaments sparked and went dark. The probe drifted, lifeless, its sensors dead. But for every probe destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The Overmind's true power lay not in individual vessels, but in their collective will. As long as even one probe remained connected, it could redistribute cognitive load, compensate for losses, and reinscribe tactical directives in real time. Adjust jamming frequency to Beta 18. Airs shouted, "We need to sever their network, not just disable vessels." The bridge's hologrid flickered as Airs input a new sequence. A deeper, low-frequency resonance pulsed outward from the Dauntless, a counter-harmonic specifically tuned to disrupt the Zephyrian neural lattice. Outside, the remaining probes convulsed as if struck by an unseen crusher. Their filaments stuttered, then dimmed. Now Mara yelled, full throttle to Vector Echo 8. "Get us out of here." The Dauntless's engines flared as it dove back toward the asteroid belt. Behind them, the probes reeled, their formation broken, systems failing. One by one, they collapsed into drifting husks, still faintly aglow, until their cores finally died. On the bridge, the crew watched the carnage in stunned silence. 20 ships sleek, lethal had been neutralized by a single warship and its daring crew. Mara exhaled, voice rough. "Report." Lieutenant Chen's eyes were wide. "Minimal damage. Shields down to 40%, but hull integrity intact. We're clear." Airs swiveled, gaze locked on the holo-display. "Commander, I intercepted a faint data pulse from the lead probe before it went dark. They sent schematics of their neural lattice. It's fragmented, but we can piece it together." A murmur ran through the bridge. The Dauntless had done more than survive. They had struck at the Overmind's very architecture. Mara closed her eyes for a moment, drawing strength from the darkened ceiling. Then she opened them. "Resolute, excellent. Prepare analysis teams. Dr. Salahuddin, get to the lab. I want those fragments decrypted immediately." As the crew dispersed to their stations, Mara walked to the viewport. Asteroids drifted by like ancient tombstones. In the distance, the blood-red glow of a dying star reminded her of Elysium Prime's ruined skies. Yet amid the wreckage of battle, a spark of hope burned brighter than any supernova. They had met the Zephyrians and lived. They had stolen their secrets, and they had shown a galaxy that the collective could be challenged. The first encounter was over, but the true war had only just begun. The airlock cycled open with a muted hiss, and Lieutenant Commander Mara Zelen led her boarding party onto the cracked basalt of Elysium Prime's northern hemisphere. Beneath the dim glow of emergency beacons, the planet's once emerald plains lay buried under decades of chemical fallout. In the distance, the ruined spire of the Overmind's data core stretched skyward like a fractured monolith, its crystalline facets half buried in drifting ash. Mara paused at the threshold of the ruined city, breathing deeply through her rebreather. The desolation around her weighed on the crew. Former metropolises, reduced to skeletal frames of metal and stone, their towers kneeling under the weight of invasion. But amid the ruin, the spire pulsed with an almost organic rhythm, an inviting heartbeat that drew them onward. "Stay sharp," Mara whispered into her comlink. "Airs, Chen, Reyes, stick close. Dr. Salahuddin, you've got the decryptor ready for insertion at the core. Everyone else, remember, speed and silence. As they moved through the outskirts, Lieutenant Ayres, her tactical officer, scanned the darkness with a handheld LiDAR emitter. Shades of motion shimmered at the edge of each ruined archway. Scavenger drones, Zephyrian sentries repurposed to hunt survivors, now stalking their guests with predatory precision. 2 hostiles ahead. 50 meters, Ayres murmured. She tapped her gauntlet. Electroscram grenades armed. We'll need to clear a path. Mara nodded. On my mark. 1, 2, 3, throw. In a blur of blue-white arcs, the grenades detonated, convulsing the air with silent impulses. The scavenger drones convulsed in a tangle of limbs, their optical sensors fritzing out. Within seconds, Ayres and Ensign Calder dispatched the disabled constructs with controlled plasma bursts. No more than a whisper of heat, no more than the muted crackle of overload. They pressed on, moving deeper into the city's heart. Along wide promenades, fountains lay choked with radioactive dust, and holo statues of Elysium's founding leaders glowed faintly beneath shattered domes. The team skirted around a collapsed transit tunnel, through the gash in the hull. Pale starlight illuminated the spire's apex, still pulsating rhythmically, as though breathing. Lieutenant Chen, their sensor specialist, paused beside a jumble of broken conduits. He swept his portable receptor across a shallow crater. Magnetic anomalies suggest buried cabling. I think there's an access shaft just ahead, about 10 meters down. He tapped a holographic overlay. If we follow this alcove, we can slip beneath the rubble and emerge closer to the core. Lead the way, Mara ordered. But stay quiet. No more fireworks. With practiced steps, the crew clambered into the alcove, sidestepping jagged rebar and fractured conduits. In the faint phosphorescence, Dai's muzzle light revealed numbers and Rune's Elysian signage, now meaningless without power. At the end of the tunnel, a grated hatch lay half buried in dust. Chen knelt, brushing ash aside until the hatch's cyberlock sprang to view. "Let me," Dr. Salahuddin said, stepping forward with the quantum decryptor interface. His gauntlet unfolded into a holo terminal, its tri-lobed nodes dancing with alien glyphs. For a heartbeat, the crew held their breath as he interfaced the decryptor's prongs with the lock. Sparks of blue and green data cascaded across the console. Then the hatch wheezed open. They dropped through the shaft into a cylindrical chamber lit by veins of bioluminescent crystal. The air here was unnaturally still, as if the planet itself held its breath. At its center, a spiral staircase of living metal wound downward. Each step hummed with latent energy. Mara signaled a halt. Sensors? Chen activated his wrist scanner. Subspace readings are off the charts. We're entering the Overmind's neural lattice. This structure is a bioengineered conduit. Every step we take connects us deeper into the hive mind's consciousness. Ray is swallowed. So if they reawaken and detect us, we're not just fighting robots. They'll know exactly where we are, what we think. Ayres' jaw tightened. Which is why we need to keep moving. Doctor, your decryptor. Dr. Salahuddin sealed the device beneath its protective membrane. All set. I'll patch into the Nexus chamber. Once I feed in the counter code, we'll extract the data fragments and get the resonance key. They descended in near silence, each footfall a promise of conflict. After 7 flights of the spiral stair, they emerged into a vaulted chamber whose ceiling arched like the inside of a giant conch. At the far end, fissures in obsidian walls bled crystalline veins, radiating the same pulsing glow the spire exhibited. On the surface, in the center, resting on a dais of living stone, stood the Overmind's Nexus core, a multifaceted obelisk, half organic, half machinic. Its surface is shifting with prismatic iridescence. Mara felt the swell of psychic pressure, an oppressive tide of countless minds interwoven in perfect harmony. She tasted alien emotion, curiosity, amusement, contempt. 1,000 voices whispered through her skull. Dr. Salahuddin raised the decryptor. Here goes nothing. He clipped the device's neural interface to the Nexus. Immediately, streaming data engulfed the hologrid, mountains of biocode, genetic signatures, self-simulating algorithms. Dr. Salahuddin's eyes darted over the flood of alien information, translating glyph to human syntax in real time. Come on, he muttered. Got it. Fragments identified, subroutines for adaptive armor, neural compression protocols, and hear an echo of their lattice structure. Suddenly, the entire chamber quaked. A low roar swelled as if the planet itself reared in protest. From the fissures, strands of crystalline filaments burst forth, anchoring into the floor and walls like giant neural sapses. The obelisk shivered, and the bioluminescent glow intensified to blinding white. "They know we're here," Ayres shouted over the roar. "Extraction breach in 3, 2, before Dr. Salahuddin could disconnect. The obelisk's surfaces rippled, forming a tear in the air itself, a subspace rift. From it poured living constructs, writhing clusters of biometal, each smaller than a man but hundreds in number, like locusts of flesh and machine. They swarmed the dazed. Mara drew her plasma sidearm. "Hold them back." The door slammed shut. Behind them, sealing the chamber, Ayres lobbed another scram grenade. Blue arcs snared 50 drone sentinels in a cascade of sparks. Calder and Reyes fired precision bursts, slicing through the wave. But more advanced constructs coalesced, their blackened surfaces gleaming wetly. Dr. Salahuddin cried out, yanking the decryptor free. "We've got enough, but we need to move now." Mara grabbed his arm. "Follow me." They sprinted toward the exit as the constructs converged. Each footstep drummed with frantic urgency. The spiral staircase awaited, slender, spiraling. The only path back to the surface. But halfway up, they encountered the Overmind's enforcer, a towering sentinel of living alloy. Its body composed of interlocking plates that flowed like mercury. Two featureless eyes burned cerulean, and beneath its chest pulsed a core of compressed neural light, the beating heart of the hive mind itself. It strode forward with inexorable calm. Each step fractured the stair beneath, sending shards of living metal spinning into the gloom. The boarding party regrouped at the top, backs pressed against the hatch. Mara leveled her sidearm at the sentinel. "Target the core, Ayres. Chen, coordinate on high-energy shots. Doctor, keep the decryptor stabilized." Ayres nodded. "Copy." Firing in 3, 2. At her command, Ayres and Chen unleashed synchronized volleys of graviton-charged plasma. The beams struck the sentinel's chest. For an instant, the core's glow flickered, but then biometal plates flowed to seal the breach, and the beams bent harmlessly off its surface. Mara's heart sank. "We need to buy time." She ducked into the stairwell, barricading the hatch. With a collapsed support strut, sparks flew as the sentinel lashed the door with its ceaseless might. Above, the rift continued to bleed constructs into the shaft. Calder, Reyes set up demolition charges on the lower steps. "Tie the fuses to my mark." Mara's voice rang with resolve. They nodded, sprinting downstairs to rig the charges. Dr. Salahuddin huddled by the hatch, panting but steady. "Got the data. Decoding the resonance key. Yes, it's here." With a sharp click, Calder armed the detonators. Mara retreated up the stairs as Ayres motioned to her. "Ready." Mara's voice was calm. "Detonate." A cataclysmic roar echoed through the shaft. The stairway shattered in a cascade of metal and crystal. The sentinel howled as the explosion ripped through its limbs, severing plates and disrupting its core's compression field. Bioluminescent veins sparked and died. Above, the boarding team clambered over the wreckage and forced open the hatch. Stumbling into the burial tunnel, they ran without looking back, guided only by the faint glow of Chen's HOLO-map. When they finally burst onto the ashen surface, the sky overhead was a maelstrom of twilight clouds. The spire above they'd abandoned quivered, its harmonic pulse flickering erratically. Dr. Salahuddin clutched the decrypted resonance key, eyes alight. "We did it," he gasped. "We have the lattice's harmonic blueprint and the keystone vulnerability. With this, we can construct a graviton emitter tuned to shatter the Overmind's neural network." Mara looked up at the wounded spire, its heartbeat faltering. "Then, we'll give them that weapon. But first, we return to the Dauntless. We've won a battle, and soon, we'll win the war." Behind them, the remains of the Nexus core pulsed once, as though in farewell, then collapsed inward, consumed by the planet's fractured crust. In its death throes it released a final resonance, a keening dirge felt rather than heard that rippled across the fallen city. Mara closed her eyes, committing the sound to memory. The Overmind had revealed its heart, and they had learned how to break it. With that knowledge in hand, humanity's greatest gamble was poised to become its ultimate weapon. And as the Dauntless lifted off into the choking skies, Mara carried within her the song of a dying dominion, an elegy that would herald an uprising. Across 1,000 worlds asterisk, the Dauntless drifted at the edge of the Orion sector, its hull scarred but unbowed. In the main chamber, engineers assembled the graviton harmonic emitter, the culmination of data harvested from Elysium Prime. Consoles hummed as Lieutenant Ayres fine-tuned pulse modulators and Dr. Sal Hoodin aligned phase air A emitters to the exact resonance frequency revealed by the decrypted keystone. All around, the crew moved with deliberate purpose. This was their last chance to shatter the overminds. Collective will. Mara Zelen stood on the bridge, her gaze drifting past swirling starfields to the distant point where the Zephyrian Armada lurked. More than 500 vessels, cruisers, dreadnoughts, hive ships lay arrayed in a semicircle, their bioluminescent hulls rippling in perfect synchrony. She could feel the weight of trillions of minds focused on her ship, probing, calculating, ready to consume any spark of resistance. But now humanity held the blade at their throat. Resonance emitter is online, Commander, Ayres reported, voice taut with anticipation. Phase stability at 98%. Emission matrix primed. Mara exhaled. Helm, maintain current vector. Shields to full frequency dispersion. Medical and damage control teams stand by. She paused, meeting each of her senior officers. Eyes in turn, drawing strength from their resolve. All right, let's give them the thunder they never heard coming. Fire at will. A moment later, the prow of the Dauntless erupted in light. The graviton harmonic emitter unleashed a silent pulse that raced outward across space. Like ripples on a pond, it carried not destructive force, but an intricate symphony of vibrations, a resonant strike aimed straight at the overminds. Lattice. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Armada's formation held firm, sensors unperturbed by any anomaly. Then, faint flickers of chaos danced across the nearest Zephyrian hulls. Bioluminescent filaments quivered, their patterns stuttering and rewiring in a desperate scramble for order. Shields are fluctuating. K to the core, called out the tactical officer. They're breaking formation. Across the void, one by one, vessels slipped out of sync. Neural filaments glowed erratically, connections snapping in tangled knots of aberrant code. A cruiser convulsed as if in agony, then fractured mid-space, its living metal plating peeling away in molten curls. A second vessel followed, then a third. The Armada reeled as their harmony collapsed. Keep the frequency locked, Mara commanded. Voice steady. Ayres, Chen, amplify the emitter. Reyes, hail command. Tell them to launch every unit we have. This is the opening we've been waiting for. Beyond the Dauntless's immediate influence, hidden human battle groups leaped into action. Cloaked, frigates surged forward behind the embattled Zephyrian vanguard, deploying disruptor mines and neutron torpedoes into the disoriented swarm. Carrier wings of tri-wing fighters rolled in from flank, igniting plasma volleys that lit the darkness. On the bridge, alarms blared. Shields flickered as the Overmind, desperate to reconstitute its shattered lattice, lashed out with reactionary graviton charges. The Dauntless quivered under the assault, but every blow landed on reinforced SSQ-hardened plating. Engineers rerouted, power holding the hull unbroken. Graviton salvo inbound, 60 seconds to impact. The comms officer warned, fortify emitters. Mara ordered, we hold this frequency for 18 more seconds before we shut down. Stay on them. The emitter's resonance intensified. Distant booms echoed across the void as immobilized Zephyrian vessels began to implode, their cores unable to sustain incoherent neural feedback. Amid the chaos, a colossal dreadnought pitched sideways, its underside rupturing in a bloom of violet light as it disintegrated. 15 to 14, 13. Engineering reported a critical energy spike. The SSQ drive's containment field danced at its limit. Mara, we can't sustain much longer. If we don't disengage, we'll risk a cascade failure, Ayres warned. Mara's jaw set. We knew the risks. Hold just until the wavefront reaches their command nexus. She monitored the tactical holomap, the Overmind's flagship. hovered at the heart of the formation, an immense hive ship bristling with subspace antennae and life-processing conduits. If that vessel fell, the entire collective would splinter into isolated nodes. 10, 9, 8. With a final surge, the emitter's pulse clawed into the flagship's neural lattice. The dreadnought convulsed violently, as if stricken by a mortal wound. Bow-like cables of living circuitry snapped, and the ship's bioluminescence faded to gray. It shuddered once, then disintegrated in a silent cascade of collapsing subspace. 3, 2, 1. Cut power, Mara shouted, across the Dauntless. Lights dimmed as the graviton emitter powered down. For a heartbeat, the ship floated in pregnant silence, then erupted in applause. As the Overmind's remaining vessels, bereft of collective intelligence, turned on one another, plasma streams crisscrossed the void as desperate attempts to preserve any semblance of order ignited a conflagration among the broken swarm. They're routing, heirs reported, stunned. They're falling back in scattered pods, hostile, signatures dropping by 75%. Mara allowed herself a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Open hailing frequencies to every battle group. Commence mop-up. Her gaze swept the holomap, where red and blue icons converged on isolated Zephyrian flotsam. They underestimated human resolve and they paid the price. 3 hours later, the battlefield lay littered with drifting hulkage, human ships, orbited salvage targets, rescuing survivors from world ships reduced to drifting tombs. In a temporary fleet anchorage, Admiral Rishan's flagship hovered beside the Dauntless as Mara and her officers attended a debrief. Lieutenant Commander, Rishan began, voice taut with gravity. You've done what no one thought possible. You shattered the Overmind's network. The collective is in disarray. Planets once lost now signaling for aid. And entire armadas surrendering rather than face disintegration. Mara inclined her head. It was a team effort, Admiral. We held the line long enough to deliver the keystone. Strike. Now we must aid the survivors and ensure the Zephyrians never coalesce again. The Admiral nodded. Orders are being dispatched. The Council of 10,000 Worlds convenes aboard Tethys Station next week. They'll coordinate liberation efforts. You have earned a place among their brightest heroes. Mara's mind drifted to the countless billions whose voices had been merged and silenced by the Overmind. Their echoes now mingled with the liberated. Cries of worlds awakening from stasis. Thank you, Admiral, she replied softly. Let's make sure their sacrifice isn't forgotten. As she stepped back to her ship, a holo message flickered from Earth Command, a transmission etched with the ascending phoenix of the USD. They had authorized the full declassification of Project Aegis and the loan of every research vessel to reconstruction efforts. Humanity would lead the charge to reclaim lost star systems and restore shattered societies. Though exhaustion weighed on her bones, Mara felt hope surge through her veins. The Overmind's dominion had collapsed like a dying star, and with it, the specter of extinction had receded. Yet she also knew the war against assimilation was not over. Scattered Zephyrian enclaves would resist. Vengeful and cunning, the fight for freedom would continue, system by system, heart by heart. But for this moment, the galaxy breathed. New alliances formed, old wounds began to heal, and the ember of human defiance burned brighter than any supernova. And as the Dauntless slipped away from the anchorage its engines, singing a quiet hymn of victory, Mara Zelen looked to the stars and whispered a promise.